Rome was a land power, a wolf whose legions were unstoppable predators. But on the sea, Rome was prey. In the 3rd century BC, the Mediterranean was the private domain of their rival, Carthage, the undisputed masters of the waves. As the First Punic War exploded over Sicily, the Romans faced a fatal problem. Their legions were trapped on the shore, staring helplessly as Carthaginian warships raided their coasts. Carthaginian dominance was absolute, built on 1,000 years of Phoenician sailing knowledge. Their high-tech quinquereme, powered by 300 rowers, was fast and deadly. Carthaginian admirals were masters of maneuver, dancing around enemies, smashing oars and landing bronze-tipped ram strikes below the waterline. To Carthage, the sea wasn't just a battlefield, it was their identity. They were a civilization built on maritime trade, their power projected by their fleet. Their captains trained from birth for complex maneuvers like the diekplus, sailing through an enemy line, and periplus, sailing around an enemy. Their ships were the pinnacle of technology, and their sailors were the best in the world. The idea that a nation of farmers, as they saw the Romans, could challenge them on their own element wasn't just unlikely, it was insulting and absurd. Rome had only farmers and soldiers with no sailing experience. Their first attempts were a disaster. They were annihilated. It was an existential crisis. They could not win in Sicily or protect their homeland. Rome's generals understood a simple, brutal truth. We build a navy or we die. But how? How to build a high-tech war machine and master a skill that took centuries to perfect? The answer came from luck. Legend says in 264 BC, a Carthaginian quinquereme shipwrecked, intact, on Roman-controlled land. Roman scouts seized it. Engineers and architects swarmed the vessel, treating it as a textbook to be copied. They took the ship apart, and in a breathtaking feat of reverse engineering, the Roman Senate gave an order: build 100 of these and do it in 60 days. This order was sheer madness. Rome had no massive shipyards, no seasoned naval architects, no vast stores of cured timber. They were starting from zero, but the Republic's will was absolute. Forests were felled, entire stretches of coastline were transformed into bustling, chaotic shipyards. Thousands of citizens, carpenters, blacksmiths, laborers, were conscripted into a single desperate industrial mobilization. It was a massive industrial challenge. To solve the problem of training 30,000 rowers for ships that didn't exist, they built practice benches on the beach. In massive assembly lines, men learned to pull as one on dry land. In 2 months, Rome had an armada. This surreal scene on the beaches of Italy perfectly captures the Roman spirit. It was an application of pure, brute force discipline to an unfamiliar art. While the Carthaginians learned to row through generations of experience on the waves, the Romans learned through sheer, repetitive, monotonous drilling on the sand. An oarmaster would beat the drum, and thousands of men, who had never felt the heave of an ocean swell, would pull in perfect, mechanical time. They weren't learning to be sailors, they were learning to be components in a massive floating war machine. But even with this new fleet, they knew their rookie sailors were no match for Carthaginian veterans in a battle of maneuver. They would still be rammed and sunk. A Roman consul must have realized the truth. We cannot outsail them, but we can outfight them. The solution was to cheat. It was to invent a device that turned a sea battle into a land battle. They invented the Corvus, or Raven. It was a brutal 11-meter-long boarding bridge on a swivel, ending in a massive, heavy spike. The plan was simple. Forget maneuvers, sail straight at the enemy, and drop the bridge. The first test came at the Battle of Mylae. The arrogant Carthaginian commander, seeing the clumsy Roman ships with their strange poles, ordered an attack. He was the first to be surprised. A Roman ship slammed into his flagship, and with a crash, the Corvus slammed down. The giant spike locked the ships together. For the Carthaginian crew, this was a nightmare realized. Their entire naval doctrine was based on avoiding this exact scenario. They were lightly armed, trained for speed and maneuver, not for a brutal close-quarters melee. They were sailors, not marines. As the bridge locked the ships together, a wave of panic must have set in. They were trapped. Their superior ship, instantly negated, turned into nothing more than a floating platform for their own execution.
The Carthaginian sailors looked up in terror as charging down the bridge were not sailors, but fully armored Roman legionaries. It was a massacre. The legionaries cleared the deck in minutes, capturing the Carthaginian flagship. Ship after ship, the same scene played out. The confused Carthaginians had no counter. Their superior speed meant nothing. The Corvus had turned their strength into a weakness. Rome seized 50 ships and won its first ever naval battle. The Corvus was a war winner, but also a death trap. The massive bridge made the ships dangerously top-heavy. In open sea storms, they were coffins. Rome lost 2 entire fleets and over 100,000 men, not to Carthage, but to the weather. The Corvus was to blame, but it had served its purpose. It was a temporary crutch that gave Rome time to learn. By the end of the war, Roman sailors were veterans who had learned to ram and maneuver. In the final battles, they didn't even need the Corvus. They had finally become wolves of the sea. Rome won the First Punic War, seized Sicily, and became a naval power. This single, desperate innovation was the key that unlocked the world. Rome's navy would go on to defeat Carthage again, crush pirates, conquer Greece, and unite the entire Mediterranean. The sea was no longer a barrier, but a Roman highway, a protected superconnector for legions and trade. They gave it a new name, Mare Nostrum, our sea. The Roman navy, born from a shipwreck and a crude bridge, became the bloodstream of an empire, holding it together for 500 years.
It's giving way! Heave, men, heave!